Hello there. I'm BinMan75, the developer of this application called Nodeit. And a little bit of a backstory, I just decided to want to create my own node system. I have an obsession with nodes, been using many applications such as Autodesk Maya for several decades and the Foundry Nuke, and I just love nodes, and I thought it would be kind of cool just as a hobbyist project to create my own node-based system, and that's what this is. It's still currently in a beta phase, but I just wanted to just talk a little bit about what it is and what it isn't. Um, it's essentially a visual scripting tool. It's got a lot of nodes at the moment, the AI stuff and animation and the dynamics, some fun simulation stuff. Um, so it's quite an interesting tool as it stands, but it's not meant to be a complete replacement for something like Nuke, although it can some basic compositing. But with time, it could become something more interesting and become better at doing specific tasks. Right now, it's kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. Um, and so that's why I decided to make Noded. It was more just, like I said, my obsession with nodes, love doing things with nodes. So I just wanted to make an application that could do lots of different things with nodes rather than one specific area. So the first thing I want to talk about is, I guess, how we can create nodes and how we can connect nodes and just talk a little bit about the interface. So to create nodes, it's pretty simple. We can just go in and right click anywhere in the graph, and let's go and create some data nodes. So I'll create a float, and I'll just go back in here and I'll create a integer. I can select nodes. When I select nodes, you'll see I get like an orange dashed line around the border. I can also draw a box around. I can move nodes once they're selected. I can deselect nodes by just clicking into the empty space. I can select a node and hold shift to select another node. I can hold control to deselect, and that works also with the box selections. So if I draw a box, I can hold control, deselect multiple nodes. In this case, I just had one node that I deselected. In order to edit the data of a node, you want to bring it inside of what we call the node editor. And to do that, we double click a node, and I can double click both of these nodes. And I might rename my nodes, so you can rename your nodes. So the data type or the class type will be always shown above in white. And then you've got the name of the node. So float one is its name, but I can come here and call it A, for example, change it here, and I can also do the same thing for the int. I'll call it B. So what if I wanted to multiply these? I can do that. But first of all, let's give them a value. So let's give the float 1.5, and let's just give the integer 3. So if I wanted to, I could add these together. I can just right click and go and add an operator. Got a bunch of operators, but another way you can add nodes is to use tab. So I can hit the tab key and I can type in, let's say, add. I can move my mouse on top of it, or I could use the arrows to go up and down and press enter, and that will add an add node. I can then make a connection. So to make connections, there's two ways to do it. I can just select the output and I can drag all the way to the input. Um, once a connection can be made, you'll see that a circle um, pops up and the line is green. The line can go green or red. If it's red, it means that it's incompatible and you can't make the connection. In this case, it is compatible. You can see that most node inputs have colors as well, and they're all color coded. So float values are always blue and ints are always orange. So you can already see that the circle and the input accepts two data types, and so blue, the float is one of them. I can just release that, and I can do the same thing here, but this time I'm going to do something different. Instead of clicking it and dragging like what I did before, I'm just going to click it. This time I'm not holding down the mouse button. I can just move it over. You can see that the circle turns orange this time because it's coming from an integer, and I can release it. So I can either click and hold and drag while I click and then hold mouse button and drag to it, or I can click and then just click again. And the click and click again is important, and I'll explain why shortly. But right now you can see that there's our add, and we've got 4.5, which is obviously correct. Okay, so let me explain why you might want to just click. So let's say I wanted to multiply, add another a node here, which is multiply. I can click, and then I can just move my mouse wherever I want, but I'm not holding down the button. I can hit tab, and now I can type in multiply, and it will automatically connect that for me. I don't have a actual output yet because the nodes would not calculate until I have at least a second input. And so now I can just drag that in here, and you can see there's my result. Okay, so how do we disconnect nodes? To disconnect nodes, there's two ways. You can either just click on an output, sorry, on an input, just by clicking it like this. I can also explain undo and redo while I'm here. So if I press Control Z, I can undo those changes. I can press Control Y now to redo those changes. Let me just go back and do that so that we're back to where we were. And if I wanted to disconnect multiple connections, I can use the cut tool. And to do that, I just start anywhere in the graph, and I can hold down Shift and Control and just draw a line and drag my left mouse button. And I can also disconnect multiple connections at once. I'm going to undo that. Let's talk a little bit about the node editor. So in the node editor, you can see that there's a number. By default, it's 5. But essentially that means how many nodes I can show inside of here. So if I double click one, another one, right now I have 4. I haven't reached the cap yet. If I was to just drop this down one more time, one of them would drop off. So that's kind of handy if you don't want to be overwhelmed by lots of nodes. I could even drop this all the way down to 1. So I'm only looking at one node at a time. When I click it, this replaces it. One thing that's important is all nodes can be muted or pinned. So you can mute a node by clicking it and then just clicking the mute button, and then that the line that connects will be dotted or dashed, I should say, and the node itself, the body of the node will become transparent. This is to indicate that that node is no longer being calculated in the graph. Another way to do that is to just select a node and press M for Mary on the keyboard. And so I might want to mute this node instead. And so you can see that I'm only getting the 1.5 is now passing through be multiplied by 3. And you can see that that's muted, so I can unmute that. And when you mute a node, you can also see if it's shown in the graph, sorry, in the node editor, you'll be able to see that the mute is also enabled or disabled. So when it comes to pinning, if I maybe add in a few more nodes, that allow more nodes to be added. Let me just go here and make it 3. Um, so if you want to pin a node, essentially what that means is it just pops it up at the top, and pinning does not ignores this max value. So if I go and add in, let's say, my add node as well, you can see the add node can be added even though I only have 3. It just means that sometimes when you're working inside of Node, there might be something that you just want to make sure is always there. Pinning does that. And if I was to say clear unpinned, obviously it just clears the rest of it. For navigation, so to navigate, there's really only 2 ways that you would navigate inside of the graph, and that is to either pan. So you can do that by holding down the middle mouse button, which is typically the mouse scroll, and I can move my graph. And if I want to zoom in and out, I would just use the scroll on the mouse. Pretty straightforward. I can also frame my nodes, so I can select some nodes and press F, and that will frame those nodes. If I want to frame the whole scene or all the nodes in the graph, I can just deselect and press F. And so there we go. So we're going to leave this video here, and I'll create another video to explain some more of the panels later. Thank you for watching.